MagMongoSlade. MagMongoSlade. MagMongoSlade.
Worst battle royal of all time. Easily. Top 10 terrible battle royals. Before we even get into the rest of this stuff, let's talk about AEW Dynamite from October the 18th, 2023. Oh boy. Oh my God. Let's just get into the news and notes. How about that? Mark Henry, he makes comments about CM Punk that I think are actually pretty interesting. He says he saw CM Punk trying to uplift younger talent. So apparently this spins out of a Booker T comment, but I don't know what the Booker T comment is. So let's look at that first. Oh, wait, can't do that because this is from the podcast. Can't do that. Well, apparently, here's the synopsis. Booker T shared his belief that a talent like Punk has to go down to the younger wrestlers' level, and he didn't think Punk did that in order to bring them up. Okay, so Mark Henry says this. I disagree. I saw him try to uplift the younger talent. AEW is not a small pool. AEW is anytime you can go to an arena and sell 80,000 plus tickets, you're not little. I feel like Punk is a lot like some of the people in sports that I know. The people in sports, they hate the fact that college football and college students are getting paid now. It's an old school mentality. The old school mentality rubs young people the wrong way. Young people call you a boomer, or they say you're old or outdated. Some people are stuck in their ways. Punk is stuck in his way, and that's not a knock. I like conviction. I like that somebody that can stand to their guns, and they can debate with you on the fact that, this is why sometimes being an old will save your life. Because I knew better. I experienced it. I went through the fire. I feel like Punk's delivery on some of that conviction fell on deaf ears. So this is an interesting conversation. Booker T is saying that, if you're a veteran, you have to meet people where they are. While Mark Henry are saying, basically, you have to, it wasn't an issue of CM Punk not meeting people where they are. It was a difference between a guy who, had a difficult time. And he grew up where there was only one place really to make money. And now that there's two places to make money, and then the second place, they're a little bit more indie mind state, not really prepared for TV, not really thinking about TV in the long term. There's a different perspective that you get when you have worked television and when you're trained in working television. And CM Punk has been a guy who has helped run television. He helped run television in Ring of Honor. He helped run television in OVW. So he has some experience there. And now he comes across these guys who have never worked television before, and they don't want to listen to him because, well, this is a company that was created by people who had never worked on television before, not long term, and certainly not in building storylines week to week. But they had the idea and the belief that they didn't need to. So I get what Mark Henry is trying to say, because you get a lot of that when it comes to wrestlers in the performance center. It used to be that you go pay some salty old dog to break your leg for you. And then if he likes you, he'll introduce you to a booker who will book you for $25, and you'll spend that on gas in between towns. But now WWE is giving people a salary, and then, helping them get an apartment, helping them get a car, helping them pay off their student loans, and training them to wrestle. And people are looking at that like, oh my God, these kids are so pampered, And that was the mentality down, I believe, in Deep South Wrestling, which is why those guys had such a problem down there with Jody Hamilton, because this was a completely different system. This is completely different from what a lot of the older talent had really done in wrestling. Nobody, the thought had never crossed their mind that they would pay people to train. It's not like, the NFL, or the NBA or something like that. This was something that was completely different. And they still had the old school mentality of you run off the week. You see what they got and then you make them quit. calisthenics. Guys would complain that they didn't get enough ring time. They didn't actually learn how to wrestle. They only learned how to, do jumping jacks and calisthenics or whatever. And then you figure out why, because they was trying to run them off, And it's a similar thing here where Jody Hamilton, of course, is super old. He was even really old when Deep South happened. But now CM Punk is the old guy. And he had the Ring of Honor system where, they were kind of Wild West, but they also had television. And they worked on television. And they had to somewhat build storylines. Like Ring of Honor wasn't like the most dramatic place on earth. But they did have to have, TV programs built week to week. He grew up watching this stuff be built up week to week. He knows how wrestling should be presented. OVW did it that way. Paul Heyman, he worked alongside Paul Heyman. So you have this older generation, and it happens all the time. And it's not just a wrestling thing. I'm sure, guys know about basketball. Rap music is a huge one. It's like a generation gap. You could disappear from rap for 3 years and all of a sudden you're an OG. It's like, damn, you 26. And all of a sudden, I grew up listening to you, cool. You're like, what? I had like 3 albums. I've been out for 2 years. But this new mindset that these guys have in AEW, it caused some friction with CM Punk. So it wasn't that he wasn't willing to meet them where they were. It was they were not willing to come up or be brought up. They were not interested in that. They thought they were fine where they were, and it's an interesting thing because he's saying, without saying it, that, well, he did say it. The talent wasn't listening. They weren't interested in listening and they didn't care to learn. So I understand why he's frustrated now, because I watched this show and I tell you, brother, they didn't learn a goddamn thing from anybody. Oh my God, they didn't learn nothing. All right, match 1, Pentagon Jr. versus Jay White. I know they call him something else, but I'm calling him Pentagon Jr. because that's what the hell his name is. They had a chop contest in which both guys just basically stood there and let the other guy chop them in the chest. I don't think I've ever seen guys wait so long to get chops. As they were, busting a move and break dancing and doing all kinds of stuff before these chops. It was so frustrating. It was so ridiculous. Bullet Club Gold caused a distraction, and the Gun Boys running around the ring. Juice Robinson ended up punching Pentagon in the head with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. It's late to the Blade Runner. Jay White wins. After the match, Jay White is like, where's MJF? I'm the real world champion. I've been here. Says that he's still waiting on a response, but MJF cannot find any partners in which to come back and get the belts that he stole. He then passed the mic to Juice. Oh, there's so much Juice Robinson on this show. Oh my God. Juice Robinson says he plans to win the Battle Royal and to prove that his $24.99 TJ Maxx ring is better. He's going to take MJF's ring, pawn it, and then make himself a gold tooth. I was like, oh my word. God, this dork. This unhinged Muppet. I cannot stand this guy. And they insist on him being all over this television. All right, MJF cut a promo after this and says that, like every other good guy, he's not going to run to the ring in a 4-on-1 situation and get beat up. And then he says that he's not going to waste his entrance pop on a run-in. It's just too inside baseball for me, Just a little too inside baseball. If you could have just said, look, as far as those guys, there's only one of me. I'm not going down there right now. I get it. I'll see him when I see him. Then he started saying that Jay White is like, all the guys he saw at New York Comic Con cosplaying as a world champion. Then the Acclaim shows up. Max Caster once again asked him to fight alongside him against the Bullet Club Gold. And then says that afterwards they can scissor. MJF looks disgusted, which he should. And then he's like, no, I'm not interested in that. To which Max Caster says, well, I'm going to win the Dynamite Battle Royal later. Then I'm going to fight you, win that match, and then you're going to have to put a ring on it. And then MJF is even more disgusted. Everybody's pretty, I mean, only degenerates are finding this entertaining. All right. This is really not, it's not funny. It's really weird. All right. And why are we doing this? I don't understand this. Like, he's got a crush on this man. What the fuck is the point of this? Really? I don't get it. This takes us to the main event. However, the main event of the evening, the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal, which is probably one of the worst Battle Royals I've ever seen. Awful Battle Royal. There's a dance break in which John Morrison, Daniel Garcia, and Jeff Hardy basically just start dancing in the middle of the ring. I didn't pay attention to this. And then we got down to the last two, and it's gay-ass Max Caster and mutant Muppet Juice Robinson. You know, Juice Robinson is like, what's that Muppet with the stringy hair, and he acts all crazy. I think he's like orange or red or something like that. Is it Animal? I think it's Animal. The one he makes, like, he grunts and that's Juice Robinson. I hate this fucking guy so much. I hate him with the heat of 1,000 suns. For Christ's sake, this guy fucking sucks. And we had a distraction in the middle of a battle royal, for God's sake. But before we get into that, MJF is on commentary. He decides he's going to go down to ringside and pay Dustin Rhodes to eliminate Juice Robinson, or beat up Juice Robinson, or do something to Juice Robinson. So Dustin takes the money. He beats up Juice Robinson, but he doesn't eliminate him. And MJF probably should get his money back, because I don't know what he was. I guess what the question is, what was he paying for? Was he paying for him to kick him in the nuts? Because I think he did do that. But he's Juice Robinson. What nuts do you think he has? What testicles do you think he has? You know, it's very weird, man. This sucks. This was so bad. So Jay White attacked MJF while he was on commentary. They brawled a little bit. MJF finally got the belt back. He was going to hit Jay White with the belt, but as he ran in, Jay White ducked and hit him in the nuts. That allowed Jay White to steal the belt again. While Max Caster, who was the last person in the ring, left with Juice Robinson, he was distracted, worried about Max's balls, because of course he would be. He wants them drained all over his back. All of a sudden, he gets punched with the TJ Maxx ring and gets thrown over the top. So next week, Juice Robinson fights MJF for the Dynamite Diamond Ring. I gotta say, I will say this. If it wasn't Juice Robinson, but instead somebody with talent, this would actually be decent, booking, because he did a good job of setting up a story between two guys, and it started 2 weeks ago or whatever, maybe even longer. And it's going to culminate next week in a match with some stakes to it. While the stakes I'm not a big fan of, because it's just a damn Dynamite Diamond Ring, it's at least something. Furthermore, it undergirds the larger story of MJF and Jay White. So it's actually decent booking when you got this talented sheepdog on your roster. I mean, what can you do? You're stuck with him. He sucks. Moving on to somebody else who sucks. Emi Sakura. She sucks bad. And she wrestles Hikaru Shida. Emi Sakura is a potato with arms and legs. Jesus Christ. This match was entirely too long. Who thought this match needed more than 3 minutes? Whoever that is should get bonked on the head with a bat. Moving on, Edge cut a promo backstage with Renee. Actually pretty good, solid stuff. He laid out the entire story between him and Christian from when they met to how they are now. Said his whole idea of coming here was to end his career with Christian, and Christian was open to that. He was okay with that until the time started to come. Then he said he started replaying his history with Christian, how Christian always let him take the lead. And he says, look, it wasn't his design for it to be E and C or Adam and J. It was never his intention. He says that he made moves and he believed in Christian and always put in a good word for him. Then he said Christian says that he always had the rocket strapped to his back, which he felt minimized all the hard work that he did. And he said, what would Christian be today if I hadn't opened the doors for him? Then he says, and why at this stage of our lives are we still doing this? And he says that he just knows that all of this is going to come crashing down because Christian always gets up. He gets really high up, and then it comes crashing down. Then he says that he's not interested in fighting him, doesn't want his TNT title, but once Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus finally drop him, he's going to be the one there to pick him up. And I like this promo. I thought it was pretty good. You know, he told the story of how he kind of always was the guy who had to make the first move. You know, for instance, he told the story about, you know, writing the letter to get free training, how he wrote the letter, but Christian didn't. You know, so he was the guy who got to WWE first and he put in the word for Christian. You know, he's always kind of been the guy who kind of led the way and helped Christian along. But now it's this part of Christian's career where he doesn't need Edge, you know, and he said that before. You know, I don't need you. You need me. So he's like, why are we still doing this? Why are we still acting like this? You know, we're the we're the godparents to each other's children. You know, why is it still like this? And I like this, but you know, clearly if you follow these two guys, you've heard these stories before. But now they're starting to put them into context for their storyline here. And I said, I think last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, that AEW trying to cash in on an angle that, again, fits more in WWE. It's been very awkward. But now, again, they're trying to make it about Adam and Jay, not Edge and Christian. So it's got to be a little bit more personal. So that made the story that he was telling more useful and furthered it a lot more. Wardlow powerbombed Ryan Nemeth. He only powerbombed him one time, and that was enough to stop it. We don't have time for you to powerbomb people 3 or 4 times. And plus, Ryan Nemeth sucks. Tony Schiavone gets in the ring. Wardlow, what are you doing here? Why are you doing this? Why are you powerbombing out again? And Wardlow didn't say anything but put up his wrist tape, which has MJF on it. It says MJF. Let me read that. I can read. It's MJF. Do you see that? Paraded around. It's MJF. And then everybody's like, ooh. And then he shoved Tony Schiavone. Got a little bit of heat for shoving Tony Schiavone. And he leaves. Man, Wardlow, can he powerbomb Symphony his contract and get the fuck out of it? Kenny Omega cut a promo. Says that Kyle Fletcher reminded him of who he really is. He's the measuring stick of AEW. Then he says the first is going to be Kyle Fletcher. Then he's going to beat up Don Callis and the Callis family. Then maybe he'll get into the world title picture. MJF then shows up, shakes his hand, says he's always been a fan, and then whispers in his ear, 13 days, bitch. I didn't know what this meant. I was at a loss for words, of course. Not a dork. So I did what I usually do. I consulted the dorks. I went to the AEW fan page, and apparently it's how long between today and when he breaks Kenny Omega's record for being the longest reigning AEW world champion. The guy's basically a tag champion at this point. I mean, he hasn't behaved or come across like a world champion forever. He doesn't even have the belt now. It's just really weird. So before we get into Kenny Omega wrestling Kyle Fletcher in the most Kenny Omega match possible, we got to talk about Tony Schiavone and Don Callis. For starters, Tony Schiavone being absolutely disgusted. Don Callis! He has to introduce Don Callis. So Don Callis comes out there, talks about Jericho getting manhandled and he was broken by Powerhouse Hobbs. So then Hobbs gets on the microphone and starts weaving this story about his grandmama and how his big mama took him to a wrestling show 25 years ago. And how Big Mama, I guess, tried to meet Chris Jericho, or Big Mama wanted to meet Chris Jericho, or she had front row tickets or something to this effect. And Jericho ignored her and told him to go sit in his seat. He was only 7 years old. He was so offended. And he said he held on to that hatred for 25 years. I was like, bro, whoever came up with this stupid idea that he has to have some kind of deep-seated hatred towards Jericho, and not just that he's a bad motherfucker and Jericho is old man. That's all you had to do is say, I'm in my prime, Jericho is old. Don't put any more old men in the ring with me. You know, it's all this shit about, oh, I went to an episode of Monday Night Raw and you ignored my grandma. What? He ignored everybody's fucking grandma. He's got a job to do. This ain't a meet and greet. What's wrong? Don't be a dork, Hobbs. Come on. You're a badass. You know? Whoever told him to tell that grandma story is an idiot. So then Don Callis starts talking about Powerhouse Hobbs being taught his whole life to bottle in his rage, but they don't do that in the Don Callis family. They let their rage out. Then he says that the Don Callis family is undefeated with the exception of that scab, that replacement worker, Kyle Fletcher. So then Kyle Fletcher comes out there and gets in Don Callis' face. Powerhouse Hobbs about to rip him to shreds, but Don Callis stops it, says, look, I like his moxie. I want to see what he got to say. So Kyle Fletcher says that he might have been the weak link on one night, but he's going to prove tonight that he's just as good as Kenny Omega, and he doesn't need anyone's help. Don Callis is very impressed, says that they might have an opportunity for him if he defeats Kenny Omega tonight, which everybody knows he wouldn't. Kenny Omega comes out, he couldn't feel less important. You know, even though this match was super over with the live crowd, I could not have cared less. This is a typical Kenny Omega match where they hit each other with everything. They no-sell big moves, and they end up slamming each other on their shoulder blades. Just everybody's throwing each other on their shoulder blades, and eventually Kenny Omega hits the one-winged angel and wins. It's every fucking Kenny Omega match possible, bro. It's impressive because we haven't seen it in a while, but this is literally every fucking match that he has. The best thing about this was Don Callis after the match calling Kyle Fletcher a miserable disappointment and yelling at him to quit the business, which to me, huge pop. When he says that this kid is 24, and Don Callis is like, he should quit the business. He can't. Like he lost to Barry Horowitz or something like that. I love this. Look, Don Callis, man, he's something else, bro. He is an entertaining promo. He's very entertaining. I thoroughly like this. This Kyle Fletcher kid could not be less interesting to me. You know, I'm more interested in how deodorant is made than whether this kid can wrestle with Kenny. I don't care about this. We knew this kid wasn't going to win. Why we dedicate so much time to this? I don't know, man. They did a Danhausen vignette, which I forgot that guy existed. Now we're going to try to pretend like he's somebody special. No. Next, I forgot Lance Archer existed. This guy, remember he was signed to Much Hubbub like 3 years ago. How he was, you know, some top gaijin in Japan. He came over here and got treated like a used car. You know, they put Jake the Snake Roberts with him, but Jake the Snake Roberts wasn't here. Where was he? Does he work there? If not, okay. I'm just asking questions. But Lance Archer beat up some guy named Barrett Brown. This match was very short, as it should have been. Where the hell Lance Archer's been? He still got that tramp stamp. He still got hood rat hair. Why does he want to be a black woman so much? I don't know. Prince Nana and Swerve, they're talking about the debut of their new video for Big Pressure. Swerve then said that this is Hangman's fault that he's not the TNT champion and he cannot properly celebrate the release of Big Pressure. He said it wasn't personal between him and Hangman. It was Swerve versus the spot. It was Swerve versus the opportunity. But now it's personal. And for Hangman, it's not just you who pays for your actions. And I think this is very good. It was a very good promo. Kind of sinister, too. I liked it. I like this. This is good. What they're doing with Swerve is good. I still wish Swerve was on a track to win something. You know, him still feuding with Hangman sucks. You know, he should probably have a championship. But AEW, they don't strike while the iron's hot. They strike after the iron's hot. And then nobody cares anymore. Very weird. So Sting comes out there and Sting basically says, after he does a lot of reflection, that his last match will be Revolution 2024. I don't know the date on that, but I'm guessing it's first quarter 2024. So they set the date of when his last match will be. I remember, I think a year or so ago, when he mentioned how he views his last match. He said that he wanted Darby Allin to be involved, but he doesn't want that to be his opponent because he doesn't want to work a singles match. So clearly it's going to be some kind of tag match of some description. Having a hard date like that, well, Revolution 2024, means that they probably have a plan in place already, which is good. Unfortunately, it's seemingly so far away that they actually have to work towards that plan. So I'm interested in seeing what they do and whether this pops a buy rate. But it's basically telling you right now that Sting's final match, who is Sting's final opponent going to be? Maybe we're looking at Edge and Christian as, Sting's final opponents. Because I know Edge wants to wrestle Sting. He has to want to wrestle Sting, right? I mean, if you're going to book Sting's final match, wouldn't it be against Edge? Well, Edge wouldn't be the heel in this situation. You could do a Flair Shawn Michaels situation where, he's kind of just the guy who's put in this position. I think if you're ever going to have an opportunity to have Sting and Edge wrestle each other, this is the perfect time to do it, And I think a lot of people would be interested in that. Look, Tony Khan doesn't care about storylines, and most AEW fans don't either. But I think that you're wasting it if you give it to young people who might not really appreciate it. Like, of course, it seems to be set up that it's going to be Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne. But it's a waste because Luchasaurus fucking blows. And Nick Wayne, we'll get into it, Nick Wayne, in a few seconds. So my thing is, just let it be Edge and Christian. If we can get to Edge and Christian getting I don't know how far away it is, so I can't tell you. I'm assuming it's somewhere between January and March. If we can get there and get Edge and Christian's story told and get them to a respectable point by that, a believable tag team point at that time, then I would have Edge and Christian versus Darby Allin and Sting as Sting's last match. That's what I would do. Because it has to be it has to be a match that's going to be memorable. It has to have some star power attached to it. And you got to do, because Sting has made Darby Allin his project. So that's going to have to be the case. It doesn't need to be somebody on the other side that's a project too. It could just be he's had matches with Christian before, so he knows how Christian works. And Edge has never worked with Sting before, so it has that sort of dream match aspect to it. I think that's the way you should go if you can get there. If you can't get there, then I don't know what you should do, to be quite honest. For if it can't be Edge and Christian, I don't know who it should be at that point. Unless you're going to call somebody, and you're going to have Flair. You're going to have Flair and Andrade versus Darby Allin and Sting. But I don't think anybody wants Ric Flair, right? So I'm going to be very interested in seeing who they give this honor to. Hopefully they don't WWE this shit and it's end up being Lance Archer and Kip Sabian or some shit. Like when they decided that Baron Corbin was an acceptable last opponent for Kurt Angle. Oh, that was just, that was Vince fucking with Angle. You know that, right? All right. Tony Storm had another silent movie that was shown during Picture in Picture, and it was worse than the other two. It was just her and RJ City talking in a underpass for what it looks like. And the dialogue is some of the worst shit I've ever read. And I couldn't see it anyway, so I ended up watching it on YouTube. It was very bad. They really kind of trying their best to kill this timeless Tony Storm thing. I was enjoying it when she was, up in her room, losing her mind. That was fun. But now they decided that she's going to do silent movies and they're not going to be funny. Like, she bit into a banana that didn't peel it. That was I chuckled at that, but I didn't laugh. It was just kind of like, wow, that was silly. And then she smacked him for saying she's going to get a pearl necklace. But I don't know the joke. I missed the joke. And then there was no oomph to this. It just felt flat. I like this gimmick, but I don't like these silent movies. They don't. It feels like they're playing charades, and I can't fucking stand trying to guess what you're going through. And the dialogue sucks. Please do something more entertaining with Tony. I don't know. No more silent movies. These just ain't hitting. They ain't hitting, bro. They ain't hitting. Adam Cole and Roderick Strong. They did a segment where Adam Cole gave Roderick Strong some hot coffee. He spit out the coffee because it's hot. He made him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but he spit it out because it had crust on it. They're officially acting like children. I mean, they got bongos and they have a stuffed giraffe. The stuffed giraffe has a neck brace on, for Christ's sake. They are acting like absolute toddlers. It's ridiculous. But usually these vignettes are kind of funny too. This one wasn't very funny. It wasn't very good, if we're being honest, unfortunately. The PB&J, Adam Cole makes the best PB&J. So they had to do the artsy way of him making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. With the facial expressions and the slow motion and everything. It seems like they're trying very hard. And sometimes when you try very hard to be funny, you end up whiffing it. Mike Bennett with the bongos, a neck strong to take you on, neck strong to take on anyone. I haven't heard that since like early 2000s WWF picture. It's like that was funny. Like when he did the bongos and did the neck strong song, that was funny. I didn't expect that. I expected Roderick Strong to spit out the peanut butter and jelly sandwich because he spit out the coffee. The joke was already set up earlier with the spitting out of the coffee that he's going to spit out the peanut butter and jelly sandwich too. But this time, Adam Cole is frustrated enough to leave, and he storms out, leaving Roderick Strong to say that the only thing he can do to get his friend back is to befriend the scumbag. He's got to be nice to the scumbag. So it seems that maybe Roderick Strong will enlist the Kingdom into the employ of MJF, and together they will fight the Bang Bang Gang. And it actually makes more storyline sense for it to be the Acclaimed and Roderick Strong to team up with MJF, because the whole point is Adam Cole can't help him. So Adam Cole's friends will do it. And then they become friends. Or they become, at least respect each other. And that could be a good way of doing things. So, while I wasn't feeling the vignette this week between these guys, I at least respect the direction that they're going in terms of the story, where now Roderick Strong has burned his bridge with Adam Cole, and he's got to try to mend it. And the only way he can mend it is by befriending MJF. Speaking of not hitting, Nick Wayne and his mom. My Jesus Christ. What a terrible segment. This was all things terrible, boy. Oh my God, this was so bad. If you take Dominik Mysterio and Thea Hale, put them in a blender with a dash of MTV, and this is what you get. This segment was so bad. So JR, it starts out giving the young man a lecture about how important friends are in the business. And of course, he's sitting there rolling his eyes, shaking his head like, no, I'm not trying to hear that. So then his mom takes over and she just talks forever. She's shocked. She doesn't understand. This is out of character for him. Why are you acting like this? Why Christian Cage of all people? He said such terrible things about your dad. He said such terrible things about me. So Nick Wayne snaps, tells her to shut up. Then he goes on about always being in Darby Allin's shadow. He's tired of it. He's tired of Darby Allin getting credit for getting him into AEW. He's going to prove that he belongs on his own. And that Christian Cage is a better father figure than his real dad ever was. So then she's surprised, shocked, humiliated by this. Then Christian comes in and puts his hand on Nick Wayne's shoulder. Christian is great. And he's like, "Are you ready, son?" He's like, "Yeah." And he gets up to go with Christian. And she jumps up and she's still begging and pleading. And he tells her, "You're a terrible mom." So she smacks him. Christian gets involved, pulls Nick Wayne away, then says, "You should have just answered the phone." And then as she's begging and pleading, Christian slams the door in her face. And the funny thing is, it's a push-in door. So as she was walking up, he closes the door. Oh my God. This is such a horrible segment, bro. This is what happens when you try to tell multiple weeks of story in one segment. You know, like, there's so much here. This is the Brian Pillman, Thea Hale, Dominik Mysterio blend. And still managed to come out with one of the most, absolute blandest kids ever. Jesus Christ, man. This is absolutely the Spartan brand Dominik Mysterio heel turn. I am so embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for you. Okay? I feel bad for him because even if he's not trying to do that, that's what people are going to compare it to because it literally just happened. Like, NXT has been doing this rebellious youth stuff like for a little while now with Thea Hale. And now they're doing it again with Pillman Jr. And of course, it was a huge success with Dominik Mysterio. So now so many people are trying to ape what Dominik Mysterio is doing. And it seems like that's what they're trying to do, even if that's not what they're trying to do. I can honestly believe that maybe they're not trying to do that. At the same time, though, this is like when Impact decided they was going to make Eric Young the world champion, and he grew a big beard and looked like a goat because Bryan Danielson was the WWE champion and he looked the same way. They was kind of like, he's kind of like Bryan Danielson, you know? It was like, no, not at all, not at all, not at all. It's the same thing here. It's like, this is not at all Dominik Mysterio. I'm so sorry. He got jumped by Darby Allin, him and Christian. Unfortunately, the kid got his tooth chipped. Them shits just... So he got he caught a stray from Darby Allin and it chipped his tooth. You know, I'm thinking he should probably keep the tooth chipped for a little while. It adds character. You know, it gives him something else to talk about outside of being in Darby's shadow. You know, show that little stuff like that could be utilized to create character moments. You know, like clearly it was accidental. I don't think Darby Allin was trying to knock his fucking tooth out. But now that he chipped it, it gives Nick Wayne something extra. And it, you know, gives him a look a little bit. I think he should leave it chipped just for a little while, then go and get it capped. But at least after the storyline, go get it capped. But at least for this storyline, utilize the chipped tooth. It's a visual symbol, and people remember those kinds of things. You know, you always use whatever elements you can in your storytelling. You know, visual symbols like scars, chipped teeth, you know, those kinds of things, blood, that stuff works. So if I was running this story, I would tell Nick Wayne, don't get that tooth fixed. At least not right now. You know, you always got time to get your teeth fixed. Leave the tooth chipped, because we want to tell the story of that chipped tooth. Of, you know, Darby Allin is the one who did that to you. The guy who says he was your big brother. Look what he did to you. You know, he maimed you. He tried to knock your teeth out. You know, that kind of thing. Very interesting stuff you could have do there. In the final segment, Orange Cassidy and all these folks, they're running around with belts that nobody cares about. And that Battle of the Belt shit still exists. Will I be stupid and watch it? We'll see. Hopefully I got something to do. Like rearranging my sock collection or something like that. I don't know, man. We'll see when Saturday comes whether I'm in the mood to watch 3 hours of AEW. And with the opportunity of having to watch Kip Sabian, for Christ's sake. Like, why on earth? All right. Now, as we close the review, we're going to talk about the sudden movement of tickets for AEW. This probably should have been in the notes segment, but nah, why not? Why not do it here? So apparently 2,000 tickets was moved after AEW Dynamite announced Mystico. Now some people are saying, well, look, Mystico is a huge draw, especially in a Hispanic area like Rosenberg, Texas, which is near Houston. And other people are saying, well, they dropped the prices of the tickets. Which one is more likely to be the reason? I am inclined to think it's a combination of both. I'm willing to believe, 1,000 people or something like that may have bought tickets to see just Mystico. I'm more apt to believe, however, that 2,000 people bought tickets because the price came down. I think that, but it might be a combination of, getting to see a guy you don't see that often in the United States at a reasonable price. And we'll see by the time Rampage starts, because then people will be posting pictures of how many people up and leave during Rampage. If there's not a lot of shrink during Rampage, then we know that it was Mystico who drew the house. A lot of the wrestling media have just decided that it's Mystico and that's what they're going with. I'm saying, okay, it might be, but I'm more apt to believe that people are looking at it and saying it's a cheap night out and why not go? I mean, so I'm looking at it, but we'll see. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.